Right. Thank you, and everyone, for joining Internet of Value Foundation New York, episode 162. And thank you guys for all coming so quickly. Shellfish and Vet and Chris, Crypto Queen, Dazzling Viper, you, Larry, Crypto Mind. You guys all got to the space before I was able to even set everything up. Feel free though to hit the request to come up. Probably be a nice little short space today. Try to keep it like 45 minutes, an hour, and 10 minutes. um, the specifics of the space I put up in the title today, I'm going to try and do my best justice to combine some of the two different clips I'm going to post up top. I both think are both very great watchable clips. They're both an hour. One is 2 hours, another one is an hour. So, definitely time consuming of clips. So I wouldn't say to watch them maybe right now or today, but over time. And I'm going to do my best to kind of bring together some of the ideas and my own concepts, of course, combining them in open format. Of course, if anybody would like to come up and give their thoughts and ideas on anything. Let me grab the clips though. Welcome up, Shellfish and Chris.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited about the ages. There's been a lot of talk this week with them kind of going rogue. So I would love to hear your take on this. This is going to be an exciting episode of IOV Foundation.
Please don't do that ever again. Please.
Wait, mic check, Death. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, because Shellfish, Dazzling, and Chris are all appearing as listeners on my screen.
Yeah, it does that sometimes. I see it.
But
I
how
see
are
it.
you, Death? I'm interested to hear the IOV space today too. I'm excited. Let's go.
There was something you had asked though, Shellfish, about agents going rogue.
Yeah, so there's been a few things in the feed. They were talking about them actually replicating themselves on their own now without actually being asked. So that was one interesting kind of. I'm not even sure. It didn't even say the date on that, so it could be old news
Recently, there's been
that
a huge
is just now surfacing. So I was wondering if you had any takes on that, because I think that was one of the things they were looking for. If they did start replicating on their own, could it be contained? I guess is where they were alluding to. And please don't say who is they, because I don't know who they are. It was a bunch of Chinese names that I could not pronounce to save my life. Crickets, crickets, crickets. I'm sorry, I'm still buzzing on like the idea of like the RLBTC. That is like kind of like buzzing in my head right now. As much as I want to talk about agents, I kind of like I don't know
I'm still
why.
thinking. I'm
I
still
don't know
thinking
why
about.
that's like so fascinating.
Yeah, that is a fascinating topic, but I'm also thinking about the quantum stuff as well. I don't know why everybody thinks that we're going to get wrecked by quantum technology. They're actively working on fixing these algorithms, and I mean, if you've got AI agents also running around and on these quantum computers trying to hack into everything, I mean, we're going to have cryptography that will be able to defend against that, hopefully. So yeah.
So
the
sorry, I
thing to
interrupted.
bear in mind, though, Dazzling, is that it's not just crypto that's going to have a problem with quantum. It's going to affect practically everything. I mean, the whole world has an element of security built into it, even your banks and stuff. So, I mean, it's going to be a big problem that the world's going to have to deal with very soon. I would imagine. I'm thinking within the next 5 to 10 years, it's going to be a big deal, right? So. I I don't think we have to
Chris,
necessarily panic about it at all.
I have a question for you, Chris. Is this like the millennium where they said, the internet was going to shut down, and is it going to be like that? And then that was a nothing burger, right?
Oh, you're talking about the Millennium Bug.
Yeah, and then it
Yeah.
and then it
No,
was
I
a
mean,
nothing. So is this
yeah,
going to
but
be a similar thing?
no, I don't think so. I think the Millennium Bug was a real thing, right? I mean, it was a genuine risk. But I mean, they got on, they knew it was coming, and it was, and because the thing is, what made it really easy was there was actually an actual date to work to. And if we didn't get it done by that date, we would have had a problem. Luckily, because they knew it was coming, well, everybody pretty much pulled together and got it sorted. And then, like you say, it turned out to be a nothing burger. The problem with quantum is it's best guess as to when this thing is likely to become uh, an issue. And I think what Vet said in the previous space was sort of bang on. You kind of got to be aware it's coming, front run it, and try and get it in place before it becomes an issue. But I personally think it's not crypto that's going to have a problem. It's the entire world. Anything that's using any form of cryptography, from communications through to the encryption that's used by military, everything is ultimately going to be affected in one way or another by this leap. So I don't think that people are necessarily going to be doing it just because they want to crack Bitcoin. So I think there'll be massive amounts of work goes into finding solutions to this. And I think I have no doubt that by the time this actually becomes an issue, that the various people involved at all levels will have found solutions for it. So I really am not overly concerned about it at this point. The only thing that would concern me is if there was a genuine breakthrough. I mean, what was reported, I think today that people are referring to turned out to be actually not anything like what I think it came across as. And my only concern is if they progress faster than what people think, because there is no actual hard date to go to, like with the Millennium Bug.
I love it. Love it, Chris. And so sorry before, guys, I walked away. I realized I didn't post the video that I wanted to post, so I went and posted it, and then I put it up top. Um, so two different videos, mostly today, but I posted a third as a just in case. And so first video being the woman who broke gravity all the way to the left, Claudia D. Raum. She has some very interesting theories on physics, and it it mends really well with me because it's something that I've agreed upon for a long period of time, where things like the Einstein. Theories where we have relativity and E equals mc squared. There are things there that are questionable and unfinished, and some of the implications of general relativity not allowing for a more quantum aspect to be able to be understood symmetrically to the relation of general relativity. And so she really, I think the video fits pretty well when it says, that she's breaking gravity, which is really breaking Einstein's algorithms somewhat, kind of, and putting a 21st century twist on them. And then second one being of casual structures and of casual borders by Larissa Abantikis, and she's someone who works closely with Michael Levine, and did a little video seminar for one of the classes, and so just posted that up top because she makes a really interesting point talking about agents, different types of agents, of course, not necessarily large language models is thought of agents, but agents, right, and their borders in relation to other aspects of possible agentile or material or relatively consciousness behind what would be the structures of these borders and their interactions, because of course we think of ourselves as singular beings, yet there are trillions of different agentile border discretionary units all interacting with each other that make up the composition of us. So it's that's a interesting thought in and itself. Though going back to what you guys had just said, because I want to touch on both things from before. Yeah, Chris, I couldn't agree more about the Willow announcement from Google. You have to give it to Google, though, right? They are excellent at being Google and doing that marketing thing. One of the key things, though, that you realize from their marketing, and it's something that it points out to me right away, right? Because you have IBM, who has the strongest quantum computer in the market for superconducting quantum computing, right? Nowhere in their marketing does it say they have competitively went up against for a benchmark test against another quantum processing unit, right? Only super computers that are using classical source of methods to do their mathematical processing, right, of unitary. So, it's like, it's really great marketing, but in reality, yes, what their what their approach was, and I think this is a materials approach more than anything. They've been able to sustain longer periods um, of measurable distance between the entangled states that are being measured, and so giving more accuracy to have something like quantum memory, which is very important when you're talking about doing quantum algorithms, and especially having one quantum computer that can do multiple processes that are all able to be like in entangled states of symmetries of mathematical processing, so that you don't need multiple quantum computers, which I think we will end up with this anyway, but multiple quantum computers having to work together to do, singular processes, because there are multiple steps inside of these processes. So yeah, more marketing than anything. No risk, I don't think, really today. I mean, we see, even Google themselves has implemented in some places, like your pass keys and stuff, right? They've already implemented like post quantum cryptography to a point, right, where it's a combination of both modern day, cryptography, SHA-256 or SHA-512s, and some of these different algorithms that have been approved by NIST. Uh, Go ahead, Jerry. Welcome up, man, and then Shellfish.
Yeah, I just had a really quick question. This IBM thing and this Microsoft quantum situation, this is not for the public, right? That's what I'm concerned is, the bad-minded person gets a hand of this and then they just, they run and do all kinds of nefarious stuff. Is this stuff just subjected to these companies?
Oh no, I mean Microsoft. No, definitely not. You can go and rent, Azure Cloud Powers software and suites. I'm not sure if they have a quantum aspect that you can use, but IBM definitely does. QuestKit. I mean, it's open source. You have multiple languages. You're able to utilize building applications that can then interact with their quantum processing units. And IBM has the most powerful quantum computer in New York.
So I could just prompt that to try to steal your C phrase for your wallet and it will do that because it's open source. Is it that simple or?
Well, I don't think it has enough power to do so, but and there's multiple things in between that, of course, right? It's not just writing an algorithm that's going to give me an input and then give me an output from you know the quantum processing to the
Mhm.
classical application you've written. You need to then, right, host a node, and you need to have an application in the script that's interacting. The connection through all of these things is a little bit more
But
Jerry,
Death,
I,
if
I think
you
in depth, but
but Death, if you have if you have funds and and you're a criminal, that is capable of happening, correct?
yeah, I would say today, yeah, it's already
Okay.
possible.
Okay.
And in most cases we wouldn't really know, right? Like it was, and I can go get the post and I can send you some stuff, because there were some interesting cryptographers and people who are building quantum computational systems, and so the mathematicians and these guys, and they had some interesting questions about some of these like early day Satoshi wallets that have moved in the last year or so, and what could be some of the implications behind the possible targeting of those wallets, particularly by a quantum processor. And how would anybody know, really? Now, here's another question: is that really a threat to the network? In most cases, no. Right? I mean, you're just taking some funds, and possibly someone's going to sell some of them on the market, and everybody moves on, right? And nobody really uh,
Wait
is
a
going
minute, Death.
to.
I just totally. Are you saying just you're okay with people just getting robbed? Is that what you just said?
It's definitely not okay, but in most cases, from a network standpoint, nobody would really be able to know about it unless obviously somebody came out and said they did it, or if there was some sort of proof, which uh, would be pretty difficult to be able to prove that that happened. However, from a network standpoint, to do it from like an entire network attack standpoint for even just proof of work today, it's probably not possible. Would you talk about like a singular wallet that's exposed? Yeah, I think it's definitely already to the point where it is possible. It would just take somebody who has an extreme amount of technique, and it'd be worth it, right? It's another point of it. Like you said, somebody who has a lot of funds who's a criminal. Well, you know, if you're going to spend a lot of money, it better be worth it in the end, kind of thing mentality. Which I don't really know. Other than like a Satoshi wallet, I don't really know much that would be worth maybe something like that today.
Don't you think they would have gone after Stefan Thomas's? I mean, he had what, 7 tries or something like that. He couldn't even get into it. He's probably got the best connections in the world, so that would probably be a big signal to me. Like everybody knows his wallet. Everybody's been watching him try to get into it. I think that would be like, there's your sign. Basically, something is given
Mm,
and somebody can get into that one. That's like a pretty famous wallet.
right,
When
Shell,
you
but
when
that's right now, the present, right? The days that go by, we're approaching that area, right? Of being in a weird area of gray and people having this ability to do this stuff. Correct? Am I wrong or right?
Yeah, and I mean that's very localized information as well. Shellfish, as much as it may feel like the entire world should know that, there's probably like a couple handfuls of people that actually know that. So there's you could think of that as well for that aspect, if possible today, right? We're not saying somebody is doing it. We're just saying that we're talking about the possibilities of it being done. And the question is you said that everyone knows his wallet. Do you know his public address for his wallet? I don't know if I know his
Well,
public address for
I'm
his
not a
wallet.
criminal, and I wouldn't go looking for those things. I don't even look at people's wallets in the spaces that are all flaunting their shit. So, I mean, it
Well,
kind of takes a certain person to kind of nose around that.
well, so then the real question is also is if he ever even did a transaction out, right? Because if you've only received the um, funds to your wallet, right, tokens to your wallet, the threat of them being attacked from a reverse cryptography of the public to private, you don't really have to worry about because you haven't been exposed. So there really wouldn't be much to target to attack. So yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, that's also why one of the cool features of the rotating the which you could do on both Bitcoin and the XRP Ledger, but rotating your seed, right? So you do a transfer out of your wallet, and you want to rotate that seed so it's back to being quantum resistant. Of course, nothing being quantum proof, but yeah, more quantum resistant again. Chris, go ahead, man, jump in.
Yeah, I mean, talk like this can be a little bit dangerous because I mean, realistically, with existing computers today, you know, I'm not in any way worried about it at all. With quantum, there's a risk. However, you've got to look at right now who owns these types of quantum computers and who's actually doing this. Um, so unless you're suggesting that Google are going to go and hack Bitcoin and take all the money, it's the average criminal is not going to have a quantum computer to use. So there's going to be a pretty significant shift um, in quantum before these things become realistically available for people to look to use, by which time the world's going to cotton on. There's no way that governments of the world are going to be happy to have their encrypted communications eavesdropped upon. You can guarantee that they're already working on solutions to this kind of stuff right now. And as Vet said in the previous space, it's a matter of timing. I refuse to believe that the we play at a certain level, but there are people that play in a much higher level than we do, right? And those people will almost certainly be monitoring this stuff. And when the time is needed and when they feel that that point is approaching, I have no doubt that solutions to these problems will just appear, and then it'll be people like David Schwartz then will just pick up on it, and it will just get incorporated into things like XRP. Bitcoin will do the same. Everybody will follow suit. I really don't think. I think this whole quantum thing is just one big massive like panic. That's It's the sort of thing we should be aware of, but not worried about. I'm genuinely not worried about quantum at all. And I just think it scares me a little bit sometimes when conversations get had that people might suddenly start to think, oh my God, this is going to happen to me now. And you know, let's put it, I'm not worried.
No, no, and you know, to even strengthen that, right? If you wanted to use a commercial amount of computational power from like someone like an IBM or an Amazon, you're sure you're going to be KYC'd and all of those kind of things are definitely going to occur. Yeah, so there's definitely a method to the madness for sure, and there's no easy access to something like a quantum computer today. Of course, it just takes millions of dollars just to build the fridge to be able to have the quantum computer inside of itself. So yeah, definitely not easy to access.
Yeah, you kind of just you touched on kind of what I was going to say. I mean, I was going to make a joke about somebody that we know owning a quantum computer, but if you know, you know. Yeah, because I was listening to some peeps having a chat about yesterday. It was the EAC guys, and they were having a conversation about the amount of energy it takes
Oh
to
boy,
store
yeah.
just one qubit, and how you've got to keep them so cold, and no one's going to have access to any of that stuff, and even if you are, I mean, it's not going to be accessible to anybody else. I can guarantee you that. So I don't think most of us have anything to worry about, but you also got to think about other countries too that might be building these kind of things, and not really telling anybody else about it. So yeah, that can be a little bit scary, but I think for the most part we should be okay.
I think you got to bear in mind that when the breakthrough comes, the breakthrough affects everyone. And as we all know, going from, once you reach that point where you've made the breakthrough, suddenly that breakthrough being available to lots of people happens relatively soon, not long after. So again, I'm not overly worried. I think that things will be in place before we get to that stage. Really, really not worried. But you know what? I would really love to hear your thoughts, Death, on some of the positive things that can come out of quantum, because all I ever hear about when people talk about quantum is how it's going to be used for negative stuff. But I can't believe that Google are investing all this money into building a quantum computer so that they can hack Bitcoin. It just seems like the most ludicrous sort of like narrative on Twitter. So what are some of the actual real use cases for quantum that are just going to essentially going to take us to that next leap? And when you combine that with AI, however many years into the future that happens, what's that going to actually do positively for us?
Great question, Chris. And AI being, really in this thought of use case being a data aggregation tool and an organizer of sorts, so that the information is not so jumbled, so that we can have some sort of use case behind it. And when we do these mathematical equations and questions that we want to kind of have answered by the quantum computational unit, the to me the most important one, and I think we're already seeing it happen from individuals like your Google, right? You have your Google DeepMind, which is a particular deep learning software that's being utilized to to do research in material science. And so the study of the molecular science and layer of physics where there are nanostructures being interacted upon. And through those nanostructures, we have these larger macroscopic structures from all the different microscopic structures of combinations going on that we, see in our everyday reality. I think when we think about the endless possibility of the different types of molecule combinations that we might be able to discover that will be viable for use cases in all different types of things from electronics technology to even clothing in itself being able to be embedded with different types of nanoparticle structures that have all these different types of particular use cases in making whatever the material itself is and doing whatever it needs to do in a particular way and manner. I think yeah, and it goes really hand in hand with the two videos that I posted up top that I really want to talk about today, right? Talking about these causal structures and trying to identify, and I think it's funny too because funny, not funny. It goes very much so hand in hand with my belief of the internet of value and where we are as an age of our species in this networking phenomenon where we are building applications that are becoming interoperable and languages that are building diverse libraries that are able to configure and compile other languages and configurations of applications to do all of these different types of sorts of things software wise, and you get this understanding of a mapping, if you will, of all of these different types of interoperable routes between all of these different discoveries of philosophical beliefs, right, and the manifestations of these applications and technologies that we utilize. The the mapping of not only these macroscopic, you know, literally ley lines in between us from connected on the earth, but to the mapping of these subatomic quantum structures, the platonic space of geometrical symmetries, which through those vibrations and understanding of physics builds the literal structures of our physicality, of our reality. The electrons that are circling around the proton and neutron that make the atom itself. That then through atomic combinations and gravity form all of these different complex molecular structures. So yeah, I've spoken a lot. And Crypto Queen, you got your hand up, so please feel free to jump in.
Yeah, thanks. I noticed that one of the videos, and I can't remember which one it was, is talking about cognitive biology, and that's I guess piqued my interest in terms of how we, as living organisms, how we process that information cognitively, and how this relates to our AI or artificial intelligence, and the the biometrics and the systems, and how that what are the implications. I don't know if you want to talk on that because you've watched the video and I haven't, but that's kind of, I guess, for me what piqued my interest on how we, the non-neural systems, and how we will process the information, and what the impact will be with AI.
Yeah, Larissa is very philosophical in the video, and she has a lot of like interesting questions and some of my own thoughts and questions. This thought of when does consciousness arise? When you think of consciousness, she has some different definitions of it. I like to think of consciousness as more of speaking to a level of situational awareness, right, and reflection upon that. And she takes it to a little bit deeper of a level because this the larger question being between agent and border. Where is border and where is agent? If we think about the entire cosmos as a causal structure of effects from the Big Bang itself, or whatever we believe the beginning of the cosmos was, to the manifestations of all of the interactions beyond an unfathomable amount of scale, right? That we not only cannot compute today, but even try to be able to conceive conceptually. all of those interactions that led to the interactions of you and I interacting at this very exact moment, that cosmic web of attachment being possibly what could be looked at as, an intelligent set of properties. At what point do we are we able to say that there was some sort of conscious aspect, self-aware aspect to those set of properties? It's this really larger meaning question. And then today, of course, when we speak about just consciousness for ourselves, is my liver conscious? I have all of this agentium material, all of this material inside of me that believes itself to be agency, liver being liver, kidney being kidney, heart being heart, and it being represented in a different functional state than all the other cells that make up my body. Yet, through Michael Levine's studies at Tufts University and things he's done with his biological company, he's been able to take cells out of a person from the trachea and turn them into cells that would be what could be used to regrow someone's leg. The ability to have cellular information utilized by a cell to change its state of understanding and its programmed um, functionality. And so, where does uh, at what point does consciousness arise? We have neural material in our brain. We have neural material in our guts. We have neural material in our spinal cord and fluid. And um, it's just it's a very interesting question. And of course, there's no real answer to it because everyone's going to have somewhat of a different opinion. And I think that in itself is why the implications to me as more of when we think of ourselves as agents, it should be used as respect to personas of belief, so identities possibly of other what we would call self-aware operators or agents. But in a whole, we are all essentially uh, an agent, if you will. One is all is one, and so we may perceive these complex persona identities as separate agents, yet if you look at it from a perspective change of the cosmos, well, the cosmos's perspective possibly being that we all are somewhat manifestations of egos of in itself of the cosmos, of the causal effect of all of the differences of interaction through space and time as we perceive it to be. But yeah, it's really interesting, and I think it gives us a lot of hope when it comes to the ability to have like this programmability to biology, electrobiology in particular. And the first video I posted also has something to do with it. Oh wait, is that the? No, actually, it doesn't have it. Let me get the other video. Sorry. Here we go. Yeah. So another video that has to do with it from a cognitive standpoint, um, a bioelectrical interface. And so, thinking of it has a BCIs, right? You have these brain control interfaces that we have today, but taking it another step further and going into the entire biological side of the way that our cells operate. And just through Michael Levine's tests and studies, from injecting particular types of electromagnetic impulses into what would be the uh, ion tubes of the cells themselves. So from a very very small microscopic perspective, being able to from that create a cellular directive in where the cell operative functions were particularly tasked to change into doing what it was tasked to do. And even more complex than that, it's one of the cooler things that I think too, is that life in itself, it takes hold beyond what our grasps are even able to somewhat guide it even today. The cells that we would say inject into its site that needed to heal itself or repair itself would would go as far as recruiting other cells in the area and giving them the information that would be needed to help it doing its particular task. And so they were able to, just from a 24-hour test of the electrical signal being distributed, they were able to get a year and a half of cellular growth phenomenon out of it. So it's pretty cool, and that's already been proven in a mouse. The studies involving humans are on the way. Shellfish, though, please go ahead, and then Hydron, welcome up.
Have you, by any chance, actually tried to kind of do a hybrid of Ripple D with Michael Levine's work? Because I have, and like I'm like super excited because like I know like 3 to 5 years out we're supposed to start possibly people integrating in like Noah from Neuralink, and I mean the stuff that like I've been like kind of doing Frankenstein stuff. Really cool like outlook on how Ripple V can be utilized. I know it's a financial validator and system, but the applications biologically, I don't know if that's even like a possibility, but holy cow, if like Ripple V is able to utilize or Michael Levine is able to utilize the Ripple protocol for that, I don't even, is that even possible to like actually utilize it in that manner?
In what manner?
Does it strictly have to stay with financial transactions? Can it actually be utilized in biological integration?
Maybe I'm not understanding fully.
Okay, I will hit you up in DMs and ask you like my questions thoroughly and when they're better formed, I guess.
You know,
Right.
you could
Oh, sorry, Chris, go ahead.
you could. I mean, I kind of get what you're. Well, I think I get what you're coming at. I mean, technically, Ripple D is about consensus. It's about validators reaching consensus on um, based on a set of rules. I mean, it's. I wouldn't think it's the sort of thing that you could do on mainnet. If that we'd even want that, but technically, the fundamental technology is about reaching consensus between a group of validators, and in that respect, Ripple D does that very, very efficiently. So whether or not you would be able to shoehorn in maybe a fork of that and get it to do something that was useful, fundamentally having those nodes all come to consensus on an agreement, the fundamentals would potentially be what you're probably thinking about. So it's not the sort of thing you're going to see on the main net, but I mean, the fundamental principle of consensus, why not?
Thank you guys.
Hey guys, thanks for inviting me up on stage. Fascinating conversation. Yeah, just the nature of consciousness and whatnot. It's sort of what I wouldn't really expect to hear from an XRP space, but here we go. Have you any of you guys heard of a theory by Roger Penrose called orchestrated objective reduction? It's the idea that there's a part of our cells essentially which are the microtubules and tubulin dimers inside, specifically inside neurons in the brain, which can are able to store like quantum state in a way in which that electrons are sort of like flowing between these aromatic rings in the tubulin proteins. It's a really interesting like subject that some might want to dive into, but it would explain why like things like anesthetics would like disrupt the the electron configurations and these structures and lead to things like unconsciousness. It sort of it's one of the theories as to why those unconsciousness um, happens in that state.
And I love that you use that word unconsciousness too, because 808. I guess he probably can't come up right now, but he had a comment, and it's exactly right, like sort of in line with how I kind of think about the compounding effect of what we think we call right, what we call consciousness. But he said it was a multi-layered phenomenon, not a single event, but a multi-layered event. One theory is consciousness emerged when the brain activity crosses a certain threshold of complexity or synchronization. And so, just going to what you had just said there, right? Add a little bit of a different particular, we call it a drug, right? But you're really adding a different molecular configuration, and through that molecular configurations, the electricity, the photons as we think of them, are charged and ionized in different methodologies of direction, if you will, from an anatomical space in itself. And so maybe that reaction from that is what we call like unconsciousness when we, of course, inject certain drugs from that standpoint to do that
it
job.
might
That job.
it might be a phenomenon of sort of it might be an emergent phenomenon because I think you see emergent phenomenons everywhere in nature where you have a certain amount of complexity, and then that gives rise to like another order of complex, like for instance, like uh, one contemporary example of this is um, large language models for AI. After a certain number of parameters, they start um, being able to display like lateral thinking, being able to like compare and contrast data sets which you normally wouldn't, like any average person wouldn't be able to like find association between those two sets of data, or even think to look between those two sets of data. Um, but yeah, it's emergent properties are like uh, consciousness might just be like the structure of the brain gets so complicated at some point in evolution that um, it's sort of a byproduct of that complexity. It gives rise to this new layer of complexity. It's I'm rambling a bit now. I'll hand the speaker over to someone else.
No, and it's you're right. That's exactly it, right? And today we use the word emergence, right, to really describe a complexity of phenomenon that we are not able to not only compute mathematically on a computational system, but even to comprehend the complexity of course, what is going on there. And so, yeah, I mean, this is why I think quantum computing itself, artificial intelligence, is going to be such a powerful tool, because I really do think that when we even these very discrete means of microscopic interaction occurring, something like the ionized photons inside of the microtubules interacting with other photons that create this possible quantum phenomenon, um, that we then call consciousness, through all the other uh, amount of phenomenon that's occurring in the body, that multi-layered it to get to that point. The interesting thing is, we think of ourselves as these agents, right, in the cosmos as itself at a particular age. And when we think about complexity giving rise to what could be thought of as intelligent decision making behavior or self reflection, so a conscious awareness behind the intelligence, I think about like structures that are possibly way beyond fathomable of what we can perceive to see, thinking about like the platonic space of symmetries, where there might be all this underlying metaphysical layer that we relatively use today, the quantum field, the quantum layer, quantum mechanics, or metaphysics, or whichever way you want to describe this kind of underlying layer. But the notion that it is there, and there's some sort of possible way of its interactions creating complexity in our reality, whether we think of it to be emergent properties or not. If we can then control those emergent properties, then what beyond that are we able to kind of accomplish? Hydron, you still have your hand up. I'm not sure if it was from beforehand or.
Oh yeah, yeah. Sorry, I forgot to put it down. Uh, how do I? I'm clicking the hand, but it's not going back down, so just ignore it.
It's been happening to people, yeah. It's a thing. Oh, you got it though. We're right at that hour mark though. Just if anybody else has had any thoughts or any questions they'd like to come up, Chris, Shellfish, Hydron, any thoughts on the conversation so far today, or Ray, you'd like to possibly take it if you have any more questions on anything? Or speculate, where is consciousness derived, at what medium is it only acceptable that we call it consciousness? Okay, so interesting. I take biological structure 808. Thank you, I'm glad you're coming up, man, because I want to ask you questions about what you put before. Okay, we take biological structure, agentile material in the form of neurological synaptics. I take an entire bridge of neurological synaptics, take 500 million neurons, right? So a small amount comparably to what our brain has. Um, take this amount, and then I put it on top of what would be a large CPU unit. And through the interactions of photonic transfer, aka shocking biological material to teach it functions and functionalities of what could be correct and positive and how what earns it particular formations of forward progression. And you teach it to essentially be one with the computational unit. It then goes on to attach itself to another biological computational unit, both synthetic and biological in one, right? At what point, if that system starts doing intelligent tasks, as we would think about like making coffee or something like that for us, right? Do we think of it as a conscious? Does that ever is that ever an acceptable methodology of terminology to use for it? It's just wacky question that popped up in my head because we think about these for us is a multi-layered phenomenon of sets that have led to the particular type of interaction being possible. Where else can we see this phenomena be possible? And do we think that it be possible that through our interactions we can create similar phenomena? 808 though, you came up, so if you would like to jump on in on this, I'd love to
I
hear your
always
thoughts.
come up late to your spaces, bro. My bad. No, I always love these spaces and what you talk about, especially with consciousness and a lot of the things that, like I was sharing, like our consciousness and how we are as human beings is so fascinating. The more we study about us and ourselves, the more we learn how fantastic we are, how powerful our minds are, how powerful our internals are. And it's crazy to see because a lot of these concepts is from ancient times. It still powers ourselves and innovation today. And their understanding of these basic concepts allow them to understand a lot of the things we think about today. Just like emergent properties, or if we can teach something how to act. And that's where it's different. Like we start to ask us questions ourselves. If do we want a coffee, or do we want to go make a coffee? Are we gonna make? Is our body telling us is that what we want? And is our thought processing what the body is telling it? You know what I mean? So there's all these different things that interplay with how we think and how we do, that also comes from our body parts, not just our minds and our thoughts, as we are all connected to the different body parts we have, like how you were sharing earlier with all these different neural juices in these different parts. This is how our body communicates with each other through these different body parts that allows us to think of different things, which is wild. As we dive more using modern technology, we find out how more powerful we are as human beings and how complex we are. We are so complex that each and every one of us in this space, and even people not in this space, um, provides a means to all of these things around the world, whether we are aware of it or not. Or does it affect us or not? You know, I mean, it's like I said, it's a multi-layered complex phenomena that happens naturally, which is even more wild. It's not happening because of we are creating it to happen, it just happens. Which our mind is always creating. Is always creating thoughts, always doing things that even when we're sleeping is still moving. You know, like that's to me is just wild. Um and the more I dive and the more I think about these things, the more I am pushed to learn how more our ancient ancestors understood all these things because they have a better understanding of what these things and how these things are from thousands of years of observations. Even to this day, we are still using some of their knowledge, but in a way that it's not foregoing as how they were interpreting it in back in the days. Like how we know how information was interpreted and like how we see in the spaces. Peeling back the layers is something that is another job that needs to be undertaken through all these different complexities that we go through life and how we left and stamped a lot of this knowledge left by our ancestors to now. Just mind blowing. So much.
Could not agree more. And the it's so interesting from this complexity standpoint of, like how you mentioned, right, all of the different pieces of these parts of this system that make up what is your consciousness as you from a self-awareness perspective, and your persona, the identity that you believe. And it's just, yeah, it's right. It's almost, then I think from a system standpoint, think of beyond the system, the Earth itself as a system, geographically, and then Ubuntu, right? You are you because you it could because I am me. Even the air particles around you and I that are consistently moving and interacting, all of us making up that particular system on the earth, all of our interactions having some sort of play into that, as much as it may be small, us not realizing it, but the macroscopic point of view of those interactions as a whole. And then, further out, right, system wide, I mean, it the complexity of those interactions all pertain to each symmetry of a system. It just depends on the perspective of what you are trying to get out of the system, from what level, and how discreet you want to go down into it. And it's I think this is why these conversations are just so important.
The
Yeah.
ability of us to contemplate about things that we always think about, that's another thing that is with consciousness is one of its basic foundations besides awareness is contemplation, being able to contemplate about the things we do or the things we're about to do or things we're not going to do or the things that we learn from others, you know what I mean? Like how I take from you, Shell, how everybody in this space I learned something from because we all think differently but we all run on the basic foundations of how body works, which is even more wild, right? We all function the same way, but in different ways because of who we are as a person and who we are and what our minds do and what we think, even our subconscious minds, which we affect each other. We affect each other to push us to do things we're not used to doing or go down avenues we're not, which then causes a domino effect for us to learn even more. That's what's lovely about life and us as human beings and how we were created. We create every day. Our minds are creating, our minds are thinking, and we're always doing something, even when we're sleeping, like I was saying earlier. And having these things and being aware of it, you start to mold your thoughts into your own way. That allows you to go deeper into certain subjects to learn more about it. Which is another conscious thing that happens when you become more aware and the domino effects happen, which triggers a lot of things down the line. There's things that can de-trigger you and move you elsewhere, but that comes to different things that affects us in the ebb and flow of what we do on our daily lives, which is, it's always good for us to contemplate every day of things we do and how we do, and in a positive way, so where our minds and our subconscious mind is working together to help us be a better person, and we have that control. of these things when we are aware of how we can, which is amazing.
I love it. You are the creator of the created, which is creation. Oh,
Right, bro? I remember I said that in a space earlier. I was like, man, that's so mind blowing. Because even teachings from ancient times even push this. Like I always like to share about the Kemets and the Cometians. They're not Egyptians. The original names is Kemets. The Egyptians was given to them by the Greek and Romans. But that's what they believed. They believed in all these things and one God, which is Atom they called him. And gave us the power of creation, which we do every day. And that's just being taught through these different I go further back than Hermes Trismegistus with this because Hermes Trismegistus is just someone of Thoth who is a priest who people believe was a god, but he's a priest. People forget that. But yeah, it's so crazy. That's why I love history, ancient history, because back in them days, I believe we were more connected as human beings, especially with the worldwide avenue of being able to teach these different things, especially construction instances, same things happening all over the world. How did they learn these things without having connections to each other? It's mind blowing. Which is created systems from our conscious minds because we understood that we need to understand and a multi-layered view to be better as a culture, as a empire, as just a tribe, which is wild.
love it, man. Harbinger, man, you got your hand up. Please feel free to, and Hydron, he dropped down. But if he does come back up, he's had his hand up. Go ahead,
I'm showing
Harbinger.
him up here. Yeah. Are you here, Hydron?
No, no, he's down. Don't worry.
Oh,
He's
okay.
actually
Okay.
still
I
here.
didn't want to skip him. Yeah. So I mean, I absolutely love these conversations. I've been in Death Rangers DMs like, dude, when is the next space on the IOVF? Like, I'm ready. Like, these conversations always go down the direction like of the things like I've always been interested. I'm so glad, Crypto Beast, that you brought up like ancient awareness, and it's just I'm so fascinated with like the ancient Egyptians, like you were saying, Sumerians, and seeing how like a lot of these, or even you get into the East and the Eastern religions, and they have some really unique ideas on consciousness, and it's just humans have been asking this question since the dawn of time. Like and you look around, and it's like it's like how do you define it? Like where is it? Is it in your head? Is it in your stomach? Is it coming from like outside your body? It's really hard to define any of these things. Like you were saying earlier, is a heart conscious? Is a liver conscious? I mean, they all somehow know what they need to do. I have like a aquarium, and these snails, you think they're like stupid, but they're just like they just cruise around a tank and they just do their thing. Like they are conscious. It's clear to me they're conscious of what they're doing. And even like like what is it that makes you conscious? The ability to think? Because like even on that aspect, like I would say a tree or a plant is conscious because they have photoreceptors, they have ways to be aware of certain things in their environment. The word neuron comes, roughly
You
from
said
the way
something
that
very good, Harbinger, with plants and trees. I'm gonna share something because this happened in the US. I believe it was the US where there's a female and male tree. One of the male trees gives off this pollen, or was it the female? And if the other is not around to capture it, it causes this big dust, which caused asthma for a lot of people in that area. I forgot what town it was. And it's their ability to be aware of the time when these things happen that they're able to receive the others, just like marijuana plants, where you have the balls explode on the male plant and it infects the the lady plant, and then it causes that plant to get seeds. Same thing with some of these things. They become aware of certain things that's deep inside their own DNA, which is
it's like
wild.
what you were saying earlier is like that's what like emergence, right? Like how did they get these properties and they're not like conscious at all? Like there's trees. I saw this on the other day. They actually can walk. Like they can get their roots and like move
Talking
like
about the
20 meters a
mangrove.
day.
Yeah. I think, you know, one of the most interesting questions about that is, even if we were able to, or because I think emergence is a nice word to basically say we just don't understand the every step of interaction from the microscopic to the macroscopic to what just happened there, to so we can't describe it, so we just say emergence, right? um I think even if we were able to say mathematically this was step one, this was step two, this was step three of all of these symmetries and properties, even then it would be super difficult to say this is when consciousness emerged, or this was when I cannot even say that you are conscious, right, relative to you not being able to verify if I am conscious, because all we are even really spectrally able to be aware of is our own self-reflection, and even in then that self-reflection being a step-by-step process of all of the systems of interactions that happen previously to you of being self-aware of it, throwing into all of the question of what are you actually even being self-aware of. I think it's really that was a little uh, down the rabbit hole, sorry.
No, that was
Oh,
good.
that's
I agree.
fantastic. And it's like going forward, like how do these ideas apply to technologies like AI? Like, can they become self-aware and conscious? Like, and I think it's pointing toward like it's looking like they probably, whether it's real, like on the level of what we consider consciousness to be, but like it seems like that the guy, I forget his name, but he was in here saying he like trains his own models and everything, and like he has the one that he interacts with in a closed system, and like it seems to be pretty aware of this like virtual environment that he created, you know? So um and it just goes to speak from the holographic theory, or I don't think it's a holographic theory, but the theory that like, um we're in a program, a computer program, which is kind of weird.
Yeah,
But
holographic universe, very similar to the
okay, I was okay.
simulation theory.
I mean, some of these consensus mechanisms that we play with today is from understanding how our brain works. Um, like our decentralized system, even Ripple D consensus, these principles mimic by requiring a collective agreement for outcomes. For us in our body, each thought or decision contributes to everything as a whole, even to things that it doesn't require it to contribute to. It still does because it's ourselves thinking these things and doing these things. Yeah, so a lot of these things, a lot of these studies over time help build a lot of these modern techniques we use today, like feedback loops, the our power of intention used through these different things. Even modern neuroscience has helped our brain develop and understand more about these things, even though we still don't understand it at all. It's crazy.
I love it, and I think that's I'm going to finish right here with that esoteric side of it, right? Because the ending where I did beforehand, right? If we're a systematic set of processes of the system, which is the system of the matrix of the universe, right? Our intelligent direction, as you put it, right? Our thought and manifestation as a collective. Where does that lead us if it is all synchronized and aligned? The understanding that if that is true, that we are the system of the system, and you can look at it from multiple directional pathways, but the underlying factor being we're a product of which the systematic processes in which has enacted this particular set of properties. If we are able to then synchronize on that set and direct those set of properties, what kind of powerful changes are possible? I think unfathomable changes to what at least we would maybe think of as individuals today, and our personas are capable of, are truly possible in a setting like that. And I think long term our species gets there. I think there's just, of course, a lot of turbulence to do so. But nonetheless, the system is set because the system has to go through the steps one through five. Larry, this is for you right here, right? Because we were talking the other day about it, right? And for us to get to step five, because of the understanding that we cannot just skip the steps one through three, because we are who we are, because we go through each of these processes of steps, which then is synchronized to put the system into the particular positioning of that it is. That is why life is so important in itself. And so, yeah, I love you guys. I think this was a really, really enjoyable space today. You guys are the best. I will not be back for this Thursday, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll be back Monday next week. And I'm going to probably keep it pretty closely synchronized to, I know, 808. I'm sorry, I'm going to have a busy rest of the week. But I'm going to keep it closely synchronized with the topics that we had today. Yeah, I hope everyone has a great rest of the week.
Good. I'll be there the next one, and thank you again. Hello, everybody. Remy asked me a very good question, which I can talk about it in that next space. Does mana have consciousness? That's a bomb question, but I will talk about that in the next space, bro. Good question. Hello, everybody.
Aloha, brother. And that's, I love it. And it's so funny actually, because I was thinking of the word mana earlier in relation to energy and its significance to like the platonic space. So love it, man. I'm going to keep it on title. I'm going to put it in the title actually too. So, all right. Love you guys. Night, everyone.